Character first, ability second. This is one of the things that makes the Suzuki philosophy truly unique in music education. This is another episode of our Suzuki Essentials series. Welcome to Adventures in Suzuki Parenting. Hi, I'm Jody St. Clair, and I create videos with practice tips, conquering challenges, and making a great practice experience. Before we get started, please hit subscribe and like so that you can get new practice tips every week. I want to start with another quote from Dr. Suzuki. First, foster the heart, then help the child acquire ability. This is indeed nature's proper way. I think that as I started my journey of becoming a Suzuki teacher, this character first was what attracted me to the philosophy. I did not learn to play violin from a Suzuki teacher. I was a late beginner, and I learned in the orchestra programs through schools, and I had a great music education. But when I was exposed at university to the key components of the Suzuki philosophy, I immediately felt like it just made so much sense why this would work so well. And the thing that drew me to it the most was the nurtured by love, that we are creating well-rounded, empathetic, great citizens through the vehicle of music. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is why this is such a key component of the Suzuki philosophy. I think it really changes how we approach practice as well. Instead of just focusing on the next piece, the next skill, we can really focus on the human beings that our children are becoming as they are learning this very difficult thing at a very high level. It's such a gift to them, and I think it really just opens our eyes to just a little bit different way of thinking. First, I want to mention too that the Suzuki early childhood education, that those classes are very focused on character first, and that they're really building up these kind of life skills alongside the music. And if you've had experience with that, I think you can see that easily. And I like to try to take that into my teaching, into my parenting, and not just be, again, learning the skills and trying to move to the next step, but what is the big picture of what's going on in their lives through this character first idea. Dr. Suzuki believed many components of learning a musical instrument would help contribute to building the character of the child. So the first one I want to talk to you about is exposure to beauty. There are several references to this in Dr. Suzuki's writings, that he really believed that when we were in an environment of beauty, that we could recognize that beauty, that we could contribute to that beauty, that we could have the desire to want to create more beauty around us. And so that when we're listening to beautiful music, when we are being exposed to a rich environment. I also love that there are other philosophies that contribute to this. I think that we often see this in Montessori's philosophies about cultivating an environment that draws a child to learning, that they naturally want to learn, but that they are drawn to that environment of learning that the adult, the teacher, the guide has cultivated. And I think we can see it in philosophies all over. I could mention many that would take too long, but that beauty creates more beauty. So just like success creates more success. It's a snowball kind of effect. Another component that Dr. Suzuki saw that music education contributed to a deep sense of character was discipline. And I think we all know, if you've been doing this for any length of time, or if you've learned a musical instrument yourself, that learning a musical instrument takes a great deal of discipline. At first, when your child is young, the parent is creating the framework of discipline. And I have the parents that I see that are most successful in the early times have a sense of discipline and organization themselves, and are able to kind of put that framework in place. So if you're having a hard time, in the early years, you may need to kind of look at it's a reflection a little bit on where you can improve your own discipline, and where you want to hand that down to your children. What of those things do you want them to see, and what are you modeling? It's not always easy. I myself am not always the most disciplined. I thankfully married somebody who is very disciplined, and he's helped us be really successful in this journey that we've been in. But I'm always trying to improve it myself, and just getting more regular about doing things at certain times, and creating that framework for my children. As your child grows, you continue to let them be more a part of that framework. So you give them jobs as they are to be responsible for as they grow. And again, I just think that this is such a wonderful gift, that that this is what they are learning over this long journey of doing music. And I think it's really unique. It requires just a lot of reflection, self-reflection. It requires a lot of owning up to responsibilities, and when those responsibilities were not made or met. And so these are all things that are just going to contribute to the success of how your child can approach other areas of life as well. As they grow up, as they become adults, as they continue their education in whatever way is going to be best for them. The last thing, and I think that this is the most important thing that really contributes to a child's character in music education, particularly through the Suzuki philosophy, is empathy. Something that I think we all know we need more and more of in our world. And, I have a video that talks about how reading together creates this kind of empathy and story and communication. But music really creates this beautiful way that we have to understand how another person feels. We have to be able to communicate those feelings, maybe without ever having encountered them ourselves. We need to kind of be able to hear maybe what that composer was feeling like, what they intended, painting a picture of what that piece means, and empathizing, and getting our audience to empathize because we're communicating so effectively. I think that just moves into all places in life, that empathy becomes a part of who you are. And when you hear someone else's story, you can share it with them in a way that maybe if you hadn't had that experience of communicating emotion through art, you maybe wouldn't have quite the ability to do. You would have had to cultivate it somewhere else. And that music is just such a great way to do it. If you are on this musical journey, I hope this really affirms some of the things and choices that you've made, and why maybe it'll bolster you on the days that are particularly hard. And maybe you can give yourself a pat on the back for really sticking with it, because it's so worthwhile. There are many aspects of what our children learn that are not measurable, and character is often one of those things. So take a chance to observe what you're seeing in your child and how their character is developing. Jot down in your practice notebook every once in a while what you're observing, so you can be more likely to remember it or look back at it at some point. That character development is just as important as mastering the skills of learning music. And I hope that if you hadn't thought about it quite this way, that maybe it opens your eyes to a whole nother aspect of this philosophy that is just truly unique and amazing. Thank you so much for joining me on this Suzuki parenting journey. Happy practicing.